Canary by Cloud9 and 3/4. Chapter 22. The male is black.
Did you ever get through all that fan mail?
Questioned Shinso. Jiro had brought a massive umbrella with her. The three of them huddled underneath it in a desperate bid to avoid the downpour. You got fan mail? Jiro gaped. Already?
What do you mean, already? I'm surprised I got any at all!
Midoriya exclaimed, almost tripping over his shoes as he struggled to stay under the cover of the umbrella. I was surprised when my owl account got so many followers, said Jiro.
It's probably just because of Canary's following us,
Shinso pointed out. He'd made an account for Raven, too. Not that he'd really done anything with it. We still need to convince Ida to make one for Crane, Jiro remembered. Then that's everyone.
Are you ever going to tell anyone who you are?
Midoriya questioned as they approached the UA gates.
Nah, it's funnier denying it for now.
Good morning, everyone.
The three of them stopped just in time to see Ida charging towards them, decked out with a long green coat and Wellington boots as he ran through the rain. Nice raincoats, Jiro scoffed.
Why are you all walking so slowly? We'll be late.
Ida exclaimed, boosting himself past them with his quirk.
We're still 5 minutes early,
Shinso called after him as they tried their best to catch up despite huddling under the umbrella.
UA students should always arrive 10 minutes early, don't you think?
And he disappeared under the cover of the building. I swear, he's always so intense, Jiro sighed. She shook the rainwater off her umbrella as they reached school, chucking it absent-mindedly into the umbrella box labeled 1A. Midoriya's gaze lingered on it for a moment, realizing how many students didn't seem to be worried at all over their umbrellas being stolen or ruined. Midoriya himself had given up on taking umbrellas to school after his first was stolen and his second had Quirkless graffitied all over it.
Have you seen Uraraka this morning?
Shinso questioned Midoriya as he shoved his own raincoat, which proved to not be quite waterproof enough, into his locker.
Oh, yeah! She didn't have a raincoat, so she kind of just ran ahead of me screaming,
Midoriya explained, shaking the water out of his hair. He just accepted that he was going to get wet when he left the house that morning, and so was still rather damp when Jiro offered out her umbrella. That was when he heard a rather disgruntled squawk.
Oh my god.
Shinso sighed.
Oh, Siren! Why must you be like this?
Midoriya groaned, pulling the bird from his hair.
I don't think pets are permitted in the school grounds,
Ida protested as he pulled off his boots and replaced them with his ordinary shoes.
I'd like to see them try and remove her,
grinned Shinso. Midoriya just smiled at his bird and ended up tucking her into his pocket where she happily began to clean her feathers. Speaking of feathers, Shinso hadn't been joking when he said he would never take off the feather necklace. Midoriya could still see the edge of the chain, mostly concealed by the color of his uniform. Oh, by the way, Ida? Jiro began, picking up her bag as they all started to wander up towards the classrooms. How is your brother? I heard what happened on the news. Midoriya looked to Ida with a worried look on his face. With all the panic about Canary, he'd almost missed the articles on Ingenium, Ida's older brother, who had been critically hurt by the infamous hero killer Stain.
There's no need to worry,
he replied simply.
Everything will be fine.
Midoriya bit his lip. I wasn't so sure how much he believed him.
How about you, Midoriya?
Ida suddenly asked.
Midoriya jumped. Me?
Yes, I see you've still got some withstanding injuries.
Midoriya rubbed the bandages on his knuckles, becoming increasingly aware of an itch under the plaster on his chin.
Oh, it's okay. Recovery Girl just couldn't do much with it all because of how tired I was.
You were one of the only ones with many serious injuries, Jiro recalled. Maybe Bakugo, Kirishima, that guy from Class 1B. Oh, and Uraraka. But all the other matches ended pretty quickly or without much conflict.
No thanks to you two,
she said, shooting a look at Midoriya and Shinso.
No hard feelings, right?
Shinso replied. Jiro smirked. I suppose... Her face fell and I became blank. Jiro grinned.
Don't be mean!
Midoriya pouted at him. He shook his head and released his hold on her. She blinked, took a moment to realize what happened, and then aimed a sharp earphone jack at him. He ducked and batted it away.
And you too, Ida,
Midoriya interjected.
I'm sorry about the sports festival, and
Honestly, Midoriya, there's no need to make a fuss over it. It was a competition. I wouldn't expect any less from someone with ambition equivalent to yours.
Midoriya blushed furiously. Speaking of which, Shinso sighed. Back to class 1C, Midoriya.
oh, right.
He said, halting at the door to the classroom.
I keep forgetting that you two aren't already in our class,
said Jiro, twiddling her earphones around her fingers.
We'll see you at lunch or something then, I guess. Maybe not today,
Midoriya suddenly remembered.
Shinso and I might be busy.
Shinso blinked at him. We are?
You'll see.
He connected the dots far quicker than Midoriya had imagined. See you both later, then. He grinned and they waved goodbye to the confused hero students, opening the door to class 1C.
It's the stars of general studies!
Exclaimed one of their classmates as Shinso and Midoriya came into view.
Siren immediately launched herself from Midoriya's bucket and
Flew over to the guy, landing on his desk and staring at him.
threateningly. I don't think you're allowed to have her at school, Canary.
Oh, she informed Midoriya cautiously. She followed us here, Shinso grumbled in response, all too used to answering Midoriya's questions for him. He was still rather grateful for it.
Don't you have a cage for her?
Questioned Kaneko.
Siren fluttered over to her desk
Next, and glared at her as if to say,
I'll put you in a cage, cat!
She doesn't like cages,
Midoriya mumbled. The few who heard Midoriya speak exchanged glances. They'd rarely heard him speak before, of course, and now the whole world knew the truth about him, or at least most of it, about his selective muteness and the issues that arose with discovering his quirk. The door was thrown open.
Hey! Little listeners!
President Mike cried, hurrying across the room and landing ineptly in his chair, only for it to spin around a couple of times. He slammed his hands on the desk to bring it to a halt.
Are we ready for the register? Can I get a yeah? Yeah!
Midoriya jolted in surprise at his classmate's exclamation. He had been too busy watching Siren hop across the floor to reach him again, rather than fly over the others' heads.
Finally!
President Mike shouted joyously.
Took you long enough! Let's see if you can continue being that enthusiastic in the roll call!
And they were, more or less. His classmates laughed as each of them replied to their name in as unique of a way as possible.
Izuku Kojima! Izuku Midoriya!
He raised his hand. The whole class stared at him for a moment. President Mike concluded. Perhaps they were expecting some kind of sound from him. Anything at all. Instead, all they got was a little chirp from Siren.
It's here!
President Mike said for him eventually.
Hitashi Shinso!
Present. Shinso replied with far less enthusiasm than the rest of them.
And Maki Matsumoto! Yeah! Yeah!
President Mike repeated in his
ear-splittingly loud fashion. Present and correct! And that's all I have to say, except Midoriya and Shinso, Principal Nelson would like to see you at lunchtime!
As the class turned to look at him once more, Midoriya let a small smile creep across his face. He turned to face Shinso, who smirked, and then signed. You were right, as always. Midoriya turned back to the front, briefly catching a glimpse of President Mike's confused expression as he looked down towards his open backpack, sitting by a seat. The black letter was there, its golden seal staring up at him, delicately kept intact, after Midoriya had opened the message the night before. It was all going according to plan. Tea. Principal Nezu was standing on his desk holding out 2 cups of green tea to Midoriya and Shinso as they walked in. Both graciously accepted, whether they really wanted it or not, and sat down in the 2 chairs pulled up to the other side of the principal's desk. "Oh!" the principal exclaimed as he clambered back down into his seat. Siren had hopped off Midoriya's shoulder to greet Nezu across his desk. "Hello, Siren. Nice to meet all 3 of you."
I'm sorry I didn't keep her at home,"
Midoriya said hastily. His voice was a lot quieter than he would have liked.
"but she doesn't like cages."
Nezu smiled at him in the best way he could.
Neither do I.
Midoriya gulped. For such a short, squeaky-sounding little creature, his presence was awfully menacing, especially considering what Midoriya was planning to do and say in the coming minutes.
On another matter of freedom, how is your selective muteness these days, Midoriya?
Nezu questioned, pouring himself his own cup of tea.
You seem able to talk to me. Do you believe you are improving?
Midoriya could feel Shinso's sarcastic thoughts.
I think so. Yeah, I am,"
he stammered in response. I would expect that you would find it harder to start speaking to people who knew you more personally from before you started improving your capabilities in speech again, Nezu presumed, sipping his tea. Midoriya nodded, staring at his shoes.
But your time at the radio show has shown such a promising improvement already. I look forward to seeing you one day conclude your muteness. A thing of the past.
"Thank you, sir,"
Midoriya barely whispered.
And how about you, Shinso?
The principal turned to him.
Have you faced any issues at all concerning the nature of your quirk and the opinions of your classmates during your time here?
He had, from time to time. No, sir, he answered quickly.
Good, good, Nezu smiled. How lovely to hear.
His eyes followed Siren as she hopped across his desk, glancing curiously at the various things piled there.
Now, I'm sure you're wondering why you're here.
"Not really, sir,"
were the words that shot out of Midoriya's mouth before he had the chance to think about them.
Nezu simply continued to smile. The 2 of you wish to transfer to the hero course, do you not?
Midoriya saw Shinso tense up beside him. He tried not to do so himself. He had this under control, right? If he could at least act like he did, then perhaps he'd be that much closer to his goal.
Of course, Midoriya, with your performance in the sports festival, we simply cannot ignore you. You have more than proved your potential, and perhaps after a few more tests, we can transfer you for the start of the next academic year.
Midoriya's heart was beating way too fast. He knew this would be how it would go.
As for you, Shinso, you also showed us a great power that could be very useful in the field of heroics. However, you didn't quite get as far in the sports festival and relied heavily on your opponent's lack of knowledge of your quirk. You might need further training and time before we can confirm a place in the hero course for you. Does that make sense?
He didn't say anything, just stared at Nezu for a moment before nervously glancing to Midoriya in the corner of his eye.
"No."
Nezu looked back to Midoriya.
No?
Even Midoriya was surprised by his own proclamation. He quickly shook off the unfamiliarity of the burst of confidence and continued to plow forwards.
No, it doesn't make sense."
He ignored Shinso's stare as he transfixed his focus onto the creature who would define their future.
"We want to be on the hero course specifically for that training. If you delay transferring us, we'll only fall further behind."
A logical conclusion, Nezu said calmly. But good things come with time. Throwing the 2 of you straight into the intensity of the hero course could prove detrimental to your progress. We wouldn't want to expose you to more stress and anxiety than necessary, especially for someone like yourself, Midoriya.
What did he mean by that? His mental health?
"I'm improving,"
he reaffirmed.
Yes, and we wouldn't want to damage that. Nezu nodded. You're doing so well. Focus on continuing to recover, and once this year comes to a close, I am positive that you will be ready for the pressures of heroics.
what about me?
Shinzo breathed. For once, he seemed to be struggling to talk more than Midoriya was. As I said, you rely too much on your quirk. You need skills beyond that if you hope to become a great hero one day. Show us an ambition to improve upon those abilities, and we will be more than happy to have you in the hero course too.
And how exactly do I do that?
Shinzo pressed. Eraserhead said that he saw potential in you too.
Midoriya was certain that Shinzo's heart skipped a beat in that moment. Eraserhead? The Class 1A homeroom teacher?
Nezu nodded. That smile had yet to fade from his face. He believes that you might have a chance as an undergrad hero like himself. A hero who avoids the media, focuses on less fleshy villains, but ones of equal if not more importance, of course. You need to keep the ins and outs of your quirk under wraps if you want it to be effective, much like Mr. Aizawa's in a way.
Midoriya could see a twitch of a smile on Shinzo's face.
After Midoriya first mentioned the hero Eraserhead to Shinzo, they'd continue to talk about it from time to time. It was clear that Shinzo had gone away and researched him himself. He'd become a bit of a fan, although he'd never admit it out loud. But Midoriya was enough of a fanboy himself to recognize when his best friend was becoming one. Of course, Midoriya would not work quite as well as an underground hero. Nezu chuckled to himself. The villains would hear you coming. Your quirk is much flashier, suited for bigger action-based instances, or perhaps rescue operations rather than undercover work. However, thinking of that, you don't really know an awful lot about your quirk, do you, Midoriya?
No. Sorry, sir.
No need to apologize, he exclaimed, jumping off his chair with the kettle in hand to refill the boy's presumably empty teacups. Midoriya quickly drank a good volume of it as to not be rude. Shinzo suppressed a snort at Midoriya's antics and seemed to not bother following his example. Your tea's getting cold, Shinzo, the principal acknowledged after refilling Midoriya's hastily emptied cup. There was a moment of silence as Nezu strolled back around to his seat. The three of them had long forgotten about Siren. Meanwhile, she was busy exploring every corner of the highly esteemed mammal's office, blissfully unaware of the seriousness of the meeting. For someone who has had such a little time with their quirk, you have done remarkably well with it. You have shown a profound ability in analysis into it. I suppose that is something you picked up from elsewhere. Nezu continued, settling into the conversation so easily that Midoriya wondered why he was considered more human than the principal was. It was so normal to him. Shouldn't it be normal to Midoriya too? And not so nerve-wracking that he couldn't even trust his head to continue to let the words he needed tumble out into reality?
I still like to analyze quirks, sir. Specifically heroes' quirks. It's kind of a hobby,
Midoriya admitted in a way that made it sound like a crime.
And a wonderful hobby at that. A pursuit of knowledge purely to satisfy curiosity rather than to gain greatness. But it seems to have proven useful. Your results in the General Studies entrance exam were nothing to sneeze at, after all.
The principal turned back to Shinzo again. Midoriya saw his friend dig his nails into his palm as the mammal's gaze met his.
You, however, took the Hero Course entrance exams, didn't you, Shinzo?
You would know. Shinzo snarled. He probably should have said it in a far less menacing manner. Principal Nezu didn't seem to think anything of it, though, as he said, Your theoretical results were also rather good, but you fell more than short on the practical exam.
I can't use my quirk on robots,
Shinzo retorted.
No, a rather unfortunate drawback.
It's not a drawback. Your exam is just biased.
Midoriya knew he should have intervened before Shinzo said something he would regret. But he felt a similar anger bubbling in his chest. He let Shinzo spit the venom that he wanted to do oh so badly.
UA likes to flaunt its success rate in producing top heroes,
Shinzo continued, gritting his teeth and narrowing his eyes.
But of course, you can. You never give anyone without a flashy power half the chance.
Nezu just leaned back in his chair and let Shinzo keep going. It unnerved Midoriya, but Shinso was persistent.
Like what Midoriya said, if you want us to improve on our skills in order to become heroes, what better way than to put us in the hero course? Just waiting is going to put us even further behind.
I'm sorry, Shinso, but the two of you just aren't ready to enter the hero course right now.
Nezu sighed.
President Mike and Eraserhead are both interested in training the two of you separately and out of lesson time. It is a very fortunate situation to be in. You have some of the best tutors in the country in terms of the way your quirks work and how you need to learn to apply them to heroics. Later in the year, perhaps we can test your improvements by letting you join the occasional hero class and seeing how well you fare. We will officially consider transferring you after that. My decision is final.
The principal's smile wasn't quite so happy anymore. More apologetic and perhaps a little forced.
Your decision might be final,
Midoriya stammered, putting down his cup of tea, his hand reaching towards the yellow backpack that he had resting by his feet. He'd emptied its contents into his locker earlier that day, so now all that remained inside it were the items necessary for his meeting.
But mine isn't.
He stood up, unzipped the bag, and poured every letter out onto the principal's desk. Midoriya felt little shame in ruining the order of his table. He tossed the empty bag back onto the floor once he was sure all the letters had fallen out, and grasped the bold black envelope from the pile. Midoriya took a deep breath and silently prayed, "Boys, don't fail me now!"
These,
he began unsteadily, staring at the insignia on the seal,
are from hero schools. Every single one of them.
Nezu hadn't stopped smiling, although it had begun to fade as he gazed over the mass of paper.
And a vast majority of them state that I will be able to transfer to their hero course effective immediately, if I so wish, because they see potential in me too. But they have taken the initiative to act upon it.
Unlike you, Shinso snapped. Midoriya swallowed his fear and pressed on.
I could take up any one of these offers at any time I like. I could leave UA and become a hero on my own terms.
He was getting louder, now more confident in his speech. He had to be if this was going to work the way he wanted it to.
They are offering to help me get my provisional license within the year. But if I stay here in general studies, I might not even be able to pass the next exam first thing next year because I wouldn't have received the training I need. That you said I need.
But if you leave UA, Nezu interjected, what would happen to your position at the radio station?
He's trying to find weaknesses in my argument, Midoriya realized.
I have a contract with them,
he remembered.
Leaving UA wouldn't make a difference to that.
But you would leave the mentorship of President Mike.
You don't know that I would,
retorted Midoriya.
My place at the radio station gives me a passageway into his hero agency, and the option will always be there.
Nezu hummed thoughtfully as he glanced down at the various letters.
These are all fairly low-rate hero courses. Not that they don't produce admirable heroes, but they don't get far, being more local heroes than someone who could earn themselves a place on the hero ranking.
Well, firstly, I don't care about that stuff. Secondly, I have enough of a fan base to get me somewhere despite that. And thirdly,
he waved the black envelope at the principal.
Not all of them are low rate.
He stood up, leaning closer towards Nezu as he showed him the symbol on the letter, passing it across the desk.
This is from Shiketsu Academy. I'm sure you've heard of it.
That I have, Nezu agreed, examining the envelope sitting in his paws after placing his cup of tea gingerly down beside the scattered letters.
That is the school I choose,
Midoriya warned.
Your rival school.
Nezu's smile grew a little bit wider.
Interesting.
I will go to Shiketsu, and I will tell the world about how little UA did for me. Other than President Mike, I have the media presence, the popularity, the ability to be heard. I can choose to go there and drag your name down with it.
The creature was showing his teeth now, his smile stretching as far across his face as it could go.
So, this is blackmail?
What? No, of course not!
Midoriya exclaimed, jumping back a little.
Well, it is blackmail. Not blackmail. That's a bit extreme. No, I...
Tell me your proposition, Midoriya. Nezu insisted, placing the Shiketsu letter down on top of the little mountain of envelopes before him. He faltered before saying,
Let me and Shinzo into the hero course. But by next semester at the latest. Both of us. Or else I will leave. And UA will regret turning its back on us.
Silence fell between them for a moment. Even Siren was quiet. Actually, Midoriya had no idea where Siren was, so that didn't really matter. Nezu clapped his paws together, positively beaming at him.
Wonderful!
Midoriya blinked at him. Huh?
Absolutely wonderful!
He repeated. I know very few humans with the confidence to threaten me like that. And with such a well-thought-out argument in mind, too. Midoriya was a little too stunned to reply, so Shinzo took his place. So, what will you do? Well, it appears my decision has been made for me. If you can undertake a situation as stressful as this, and find you are not only still able to talk, but have the ability to propose such a daring agreement, then you are more than ready to take on the pressures of the hero course. Midoriya felt like he was about to pass out, but he wasn't about to make that problem known. Of course, the issue still stands that the two of you are far behind the other hero course students. So, this is my proposition. You might be aware that in the week after next, for the first time, first-year students will be taking internships on the heroes who have reached out to us. What you do not know is that I have had certain heroes approaching me to ask if Canary is available for them. However, we simply cannot agree to such matters. You are not in the hero course yet. The paperwork isn't in place, and then comes the slight matter of insurance and governmental permissions and caretaking. No, we cannot allow you to take part in an internship like the others will. Nezu explained. He had gotten up off his chair again and was standing on his desk, retrieving Midoriya's copious amounts of letters to pile them neatly in front of him. But with the hero students away on internships, our lovely members of staff don't have their lessons to teach. I have been looking into it and have come to the satisfying conclusion that by alternating through UA teachers, both of you can have a week of study under their supervision in a very similar method to the rest of the hero course. Wait, what? That way, they will be able to review your abilities and perhaps begin to refine them. If you can agree with me that transferring next semester will be a benefit to us all, especially considering the paperwork and issues surrounding what course materials you need to know, we can make the transfer official then. As long as our teachers each agree that you both are as capable as I believe you can be after the week is over. Midoriya shakily accepted the stack of envelopes from Nezu and gently put them back into his bag along with the Shiketsu letter, almost squishing Siren in the process, who had reappeared in the backpack at some point during the meeting. By staying in general studies for the rest of this semester, though, you will be slightly ahead of your hero course peers. That will give you the chance to catch up on the hero topics you fall behind on, especially since you are fluent in English, Midoriya, and your grades show that you are not so bad yourself, Shinzo. Perhaps you are picking up some skills from Midoriya already? Wait, hold on. Shinzo interjected, shuffling forward in his chair. What are we doing again? I will need to confirm and organize a few things first, but I should have a timetable organized at the very latest by the end of next week. Nezu grinned. He was now sitting back in his tall chair, his beady eyes glinting at them in amusement as he gazed upon their confused expressions. Our UA heroes will assess your abilities during the internship week, and then you must pass your exams at the end of the semester for your current general studies department. You can then join our hero course students in their summer camp in order to make an acquaintance with them, only to officially join this coming semester. They stared at him, mouths agape. Well, he said, cocking his head to one side.
Are we in agreement?
In a bit of a daze, Midoriya and Shinso followed a singing siren down to the lunch hall. Shinso was so shocked that for the first time, Midoriya had to order food for him. It was hard to read the expression on Lunchbrush's face when Midoriya spoke, but he was pretty sure it was a smile. After paying, the two of them, well, three if you counted Siren, were waved down by Uraraka across the hall. The table was big enough for the six of them, right in the corner of the hall, not far from where Shinso and Midoriya used to sit alone at the beginning of the term. But somehow, it was the first time all six had been truly together. So, you were busy? Jiro pushed as soon as they sat down.
What happened? Was it a meeting with Principal Nezu?
Guessed Uraraka.
Did it go well?
Hida asked. Will you be transferred into Class 1A? Questioned Todoroki. Shinso didn't even notice Siren almost crash landing into his food as he slowly turned to Midoriya. Care to explain? Midoriya spluttered into laughter. What just happened? Shinso wondered aloud, starting to laugh nervously alongside Midoriya. What the heck did you just do?
Don't leave us hanging!
Uraraka protested. She dumped her chopsticks, leaning across the table as if getting closer to them might somehow convince them to tell her what happened quicker. Shinso pointed at Midoriya accusingly. I think this bastard just blackmailed the principal.
What?
They all cried at once. No! Midoriya laughed uncontrollably. Shinso! That's not what happened! Then what did? You were there! And I'm as clueless as anyone. Todoroki raised his head leisurely. I'm confused. You're always confused? Jiro interjected. I think... Midoriya breathed, staring at each of his friends in turn with a bewildered smile across his face. I think we just got onto the hero course.